Hi, everyone, and welcome to another podcast show, bringing you another fabulous guest. We are talking on the topic of the power of reinvention, stepping into a new decade of life and shifting your mindset to accomplish what you're seeking. Sounds awesome, right? Yeah. So I'm bringing you a lovely, lovely young lady. Her name is Amber Ybarra. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited for this conversation today.
It's going to be a lovely organic conversation, and I've got quite a few things that we will cover off on today. So I'm really quite excited to tell people about you. So let me just mention a little bit more about you to the
Yeah.
listeners. So Amber is an entrepreneur. She's a motivational speaker and author, podcast host of the Positive Platform, a high performance coach, and a model. So we've got quite a few things that we want to talk to Amber about. So Amber, do you want to give a little bit of a story, a background to everything that we're talking about today, and tell listeners about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And although I feel like that's sometimes such a packed question, I will of course make the shorter version of it for you guys. So I am coming to you from San Antonio, Texas, actually, is where I'm located. I have spent the last decade plus really traveling the world and was in pretty much signed with some top modeling agencies. Got to do that for a while, got into production, and I just have tapped into my more creative self lately. The book that I have coming out, the podcast that I host, which I think it's so amazing that you have this as well, because it takes so much to have these deeper conversations with people. And it's something that I enjoy as well. And as far as the entrepreneurship part of it as well, I have owned my business going on 7 years now. So being a business owner, especially in the midst of we're going on, what feels like a decade, but it's only been not even a full year of COVID and things like that, and trying to pivot and adjust when you are a business owner. That's definitely something new that I myself have been, working to navigate. And it's been interesting. I am very proud and happy to say that, I still have my business up and running, and just wearing all those hats it's fun. It's fun because you get to challenge yourself in new and interesting ways. And when you love what you're doing, it is just one of those things that you wake up and you become a problem solver.
Yeah.
And that to me has been the one thing that has kind of stayed consistent with all the things I do, is that there's always a new challenge. There's always something to teach yourself. And then there's always something to share from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's what I love too. I'm such a challenge junkie. And I think that that's really entrepreneurs really deep down compared
Yeah.
to a traditional type of business sense. But ultimately still, there's a lot of business owners that I have talked to over the years, and they've said, oh, I'm not quite that entrepreneurial, or I'm not really that challenge driven. Well, hold on.
Mm.
Being in business is a challenge. I've had the bricks and
Yes.
the mortar in the past. It is a challenge in a lot of ways. It may feel very natural for a lot of people to have to follow that.
Mhm.
And some people, unfortunately, they might go into having a business because it's merely that they've created themselves a job, but it can evolve. And I've seen people, how they've been able to empower, well, really harness their own empowerment and grow from there.
Yeah.
And certainly something what you do talk about is the reinvention. I think is such a fabulous topic to talk about today and with yourself. And it is something that we do naturally. We're naturally set up for it. So do you want to give us
Mhm.
what's your insight when we talk about this topic, the power of reinvention? What's your take on it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. First of all, I think it's so important to even acknowledge the fact that some of us, whether we want to or not, are being forced to reinvent ourselves.
Mm,
Whether people have lost a job, maybe they're transitioning in their careers right now, or they have the same business that they've managed to keep afloat, but now they're needing to find solutions that they weren't having to search for. just 6 months ago. And so to me, the power of reinvention is in the smaller things that we do that accumulate to the bigger picture of where we're standing today. And what I typically teach my clients or work with people on are going back to the basics of what your habits are, talking about what I consider the four E's, which are the most important, that make up kind of the sum of what our world revolves around. And when I say our world, I mean the kind of bubble that we live in based on where we're at and what we're working towards, which is, what is your environment? Where are you putting your energy? Where is your effort going? And what is your emotional intelligence around that? And I think those four things, accumulative, are so important because, like the famous Tony Robbins says, right, where focus goes, energy flows. And right now it's so easy and feels so normal to be in a fight or flight mode, to be in panic mode, to be so uncertain of not knowing what that next step is. Or even if you feel like you know what your next step is, what's the outcome of that going to be? And that can be scary. And so what I usually tell people is the power of reinventing yourself is just being so strong, knowing that whatever happens tomorrow, you are focusing on the present. You are doing the best that you absolutely can today. And sometimes that means that what you were doing last week isn't going to work for you this week. So what can we do better? What is that one step? What is the one thing? What is the one change that we can incorporate in our daily lives to help us really kind of towards the grander vision of our goals? So that's kind of what, in a nutshell, I guess you could say, what this reinvention process looks like for me. And it gets so much more detailed, and there are so many things that are involved in it, but really bottom line, it's not as scary as people think. I feel like a lot of us are already doing that. I feel like even 3 months into this whole historical COVID pandemic, we've kind of had to adjust. And so whether people want to think they have or not, they've already been doing that. And the bigger question then is, have you been changing in ways that are going to help you or hurt you?
Absolutely. I like that. Help you or hurt you. And one of my other things is victim or victor.
Yes.
So yeah, and to be empowered. Even from an unfortunate circumstance, there are still lessons that can be learned.
Of course.
Yeah, so I really like a lot of the E's that you bring around with that, the four E's. So let's see if we can, if I can mention again. So E, environment. It was EQ.
So yep. So you're actually so your environment, your EI, so your emotional intelligence, your environment.
Yes.
Because and you see people, that's one thing I would love to mention too, is people forget how important your environment is. Whether it is your family, your friends, you really, I believe in this. And it's been a main factor in getting to my next level of, quote unquote, success with business or my personal endeavors, is you are the sum of the 5 people that you associate yourself with. And so who are you listening to at this time? Are you only looking at the news and crying yourself to sleep? Are you around people with positive mindsets? Are you around goal getters? Who are you surrounding yourself with? So environment is very important. And then the effort. Where are you putting your effort?
Yeah.
And that's so important too, because if you're only putting your effort to merely survive these times, then are you just kind of going with the times, or what are you doing to put in that extra effort towards the change that you want to see?
That's right. That's right. Because we can always teach skills. Attitude is something that is part and parcel of a lot of those E's that you've got there. And that's in the that's in your effort, and it's also in your EQ. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat today. Hold on a moment.
Oh no, it's okay.
Nope, now I'm unmuted. So,
there we go.
But it's if we really do want to achieve some goals, I mean, there's the goal setting, but it's the effort in there. When I often talk about ROI, or return on investment, it's not just money, it's about effort. It's about time and effort as well as the money. The time is far more valuable because you can never get that back. And your effort is your attitude a lot too.
I love
Otherwise, you
that.
could be wasting all of your money. So
Yeah.
I think that it's really great that you have that as part of your 4 E's. I like that. Did
Thank
you take notes,
you.
people?
I love that. And I will say, I love that you mentioned the ROI and your return on investment, because one thing I feel like people should know about an ROI, especially because to me, we're not talking about stocks and bonds here, something that you can actually track. But what is that return on investment in the time that you give to people
Mm,
and the time that you invest on certain career paths, and gauging that happiness scale based on what you are putting out into the world.
yeah.
And that's so important because some of it you can't really gauge. Some of it you can't say, oh, well, I made $50,000 this year because my ROI was X, Y, and Z. Sometimes it's more of an internal kind of going inward. You just have to trust the process and some of that. And to me, all of that goes back to your why and really putting yourself out there for what reasons.
Yeah, yeah, which is really cool. You just made me suddenly remember, oh, that's right. I'm going to be attending a Simon Sinek
Oh,
2 day
yes.
workshop, 2 day workshop.
I'm so
Um,
excited for you.
oh, no, thank you. Here in Australia, he's doing this thing, and it was supposed to have been last year, and it was supposed to have been, actually, sorry, earlier this year. And
Mhm.
in person, he's not, he's doing it virtual. And I've been able to have an opportunity where I could become a VIP and do some interviews with him. Oh, so exciting. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh no, you guys aren't letting us into Australia. I'm really sad. I'd love to be there.
Well, in actual fact, I can, because your time zone is going to be different. It will be Australian time zone, but I actually can get you a $200 discount off your ticket if you're interested. So listeners, you better hurry up and get your skates on, because that's only
Yes.
2 weeks away. And also for you, Amber, I could certainly do that for you. So, so exciting. You know, when you're talking about your whys, I remember I've been using some of his videos as a teaching thing when I was teaching in universities, even for business management, about how to connect into the pathway, because there are the skills, like I said, you can learn about trying to
Mhm.
be more empowered and to create your future. But there's also, you've got to tap into the why. You've got to tap into and as the how, and your own attitude, and the sum of the people that, like you said, that you hang out with. Birds of a feather flock together. If there's certain things you don't like about yourself, or if there's certain things you don't want to be in your life, be part of you, one of your bad habits, then you need to change that and alter that. And if
Mhm.
you want to call that reinvention, well, c'est la vie. So tell us then, what are some tips that you would give us around that, Amber?
Yeah. So tips around reinvention
Yeah.
or your why? Okay,
Okay,
reinvention.
yeah,
Yes.
anything.
um, so what I love to start with, and again, one thing about me is I love motivational speeches. Man, I wake up in the morning and those are the things I want to hear to get me going, to get me pumped for my day, for my week. But when it comes down to teaching, I love to teach the way I like to listen to things, which is give me something tangible. Give me
Yeah,
something I can do today.
yeah,
Yes, I want to tell you how empowering it is to, stand up for yourself, to make a change. But at the end of the day, it's like, what does that first step look like? So, what I would say to that is assess and then reassess. One of
mhm,
the first things I work with people on doing is um, don't just tell me what you want to do. Show me your calendar. If you show me the way you've planned out the last 2 weeks of your life, then I will know most of all I need to know. And then that first thing we need to work on is, okay, do you know how to time block? Maybe you need to wake up that half hour earlier. Are you more creative in the morning or the nighttime? It's also about understanding that it's not a one size fits all. To reinvent yourself, really, to me, to kind of go back to the basics, it's not, some really cool new haircut. It's not something massive. It's really about that internal work. It's about shifting something in yourself to just become that next best version of you. And so, what would that look like?
mm,
Whether that's focusing on one thing, whether that is your health, your side hustle that you want to make into a full-time business. It's so different for each of us, but
Mm,
the starting point for that is show me where you're investing your money and your time.
mm,
Because if you tell me that, you know what, Amber, I've been working so hard to, I worked with someone recently and they were like, well, I want to be this health coach. And I'm like, okay, great. So what have you been doing to start this journey? And it's astonishing when when what you want to do doesn't align with your daily habits. So I would say start there.
mm.
If you want to be a health coach, if you want to be an author, right? The first thing you need to do is write words on a page.
Yeah.
It's like it's those simple things, but I find that what sometimes people lack is that accountability. And that's why I love conversations like this, because you can hop on a podcast and really kind of get into the minds of people that are doing the things that you want to do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think, it's funny. I love the idea of accountability buddies and having different types of accountability buddies, different types of accountabilities. Um, I suppose because it's a personality type that I am too. And someone said to me recently, who I did interview a couple of weeks ago, and they said, I hate that word accountability. And I said, really?
Wow.
Why? And they said, oh, well, it's like, you have to be to constantly report back to someone, and they're going to chastise you on what you haven't achieved as
Hmm.
well as what you have achieved. But it's this whole reporting back to someone. And I just wanted to take that and deep dive with it, but I couldn't. As far as, well, don't you think that that's really more of a perception and a mindset as to what you think should be involved? And if it's your future, then work out what does work for you for a start, but what should that accountability buddy do and be part of? What it's you have the ability to alter and to create what you want and what they need to be. So I remember when I was often coming in on the different types of trainings that I've done, and when I've had students in the past, and certain types of students in the past, and it'll be like, well, what motivates you? Are you the type of person that needs to have a foot up the derriere, or are you the person who wants to be led by encouragement? And I'd actually get people
Mm,
to identify it to themselves and then tell me the best approach for them, what's going to be the best motivator for them.
I
And
love
I would
that.
still constantly, thanks, I would still constantly try to expose them to other different types, so how they can turn it from having someone else be their motivator to them turning it into themselves as a motivator. Um, Sometimes it can be a whole lot more challenging than what we realize.
Of course it can. And you know what? And even what you just said with how they approach that encouragement, it reminded me of um, Chapman's Five Love Languages.
Yes, yes.
Reminded me of kind of, even if you want to talk about and going into relationships, because the way we allow ourselves to be loved and the way we love people, I feel really affects all the other aspects of our life. Yes, of course, we want to show up in our career and our jobs, but it's always really difficult to find a place where we don't take our home life into work or our love life into the rest of our lives. And it just kind of rings something interesting in me, which was also realizing how you can, that this idea and thought of reinvention, how you can kind of put that into loving your own self better and working on the relationships with people around you. Kind of
Mm,
like the one person you just mentioned with the accountability buddy. That goes back to environment.
yeah.
Maybe it's that you have someone that you feel is going to chastise you or make negative comments because maybe they're in a negative mindset loop, and you need to get around better, more encouraging people. Like there are all these little aspects of what can help us step into our best selves. And what's interesting is, as much as it's up to us and within us, everything in our exterior and everything that surrounds us is just as important. So
Absolutely. Well, this is why I actually call this show Prosper, because it's about being prosperous in all the facets of our life, both personal and professional, and often being business owners. We've there's been a lot of clashes, unfortunately, and it's really trying to help make it all just meld in and out when and where necessary. Because there's so much that really makes us up as being a whole, and then all of the people in our circles of influence, our loved ones, and then our love languages with our loved ones and our not so loved ones, and whether with work, or if you're a workaholic like me, so that our loved ones really are our clients. So I do have my family, I do love them. We just have different loves in different ways. It's okay. And my dog, don't forget my dog, but
of course. Oh yeah. Mine's sleeping by my feet.
or she.
She.
She?
Yeah, my puppy Ybarra, she's right here next to me.
That's
She's
nice.
awesome.
That's nice.
I'm a fur mom.
Yeah, same. Yes, he's become my little surrogate baby, seeing mine have grown up a little bit more. But during the podcast, sometimes I've just got to take him out because there's the window there and he might just bark. But isn't it amazing really how it all really does add up? And when you were talking a little bit earlier, I was thinking of leadership, and you've got to start with yourself first, and self-leadership, and be great with that to then lead others, which is what we're doing as business owners. So you also then mentioned it has an alignment there with the love language, to love ourselves first, and to then be able to emanate that outwards. So what would be some tips then that could you give us on being better with that?
Being better with both aspects, like with loving ourselves and with maybe understanding how to like care and show that to other people in leadership.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, sure. I'm like, there's so many avenues to go down. No, I mean, one thing I would like to dive in with what you just asked is, especially our roles as leaders in our businesses, right? Whether you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, I know I have a small business. I have both an online business and a brick and mortar business. I run a construction company. I coach, I do the speaking. And so there are a lot of aspects to it. And when you, especially I think in my construction company, when I run multiple teams of crews, and just knowing when to step back and to listen to people. I think that also kind of getting to know your leadership style. I've worked with other people and different companies who their leadership and bosses take more of the, I'm at a loss for words, kind of the higher up role. And
dictatorship and
exactly more of that hierarchy role. And I've realized that that's not my style. And I've gotten really good responses. Wow, what how interesting. I've gotten great responses by working with people and actually being, at the same playing field and level as them, because at the end of the day, we're all just people doing our job, doing good work. And so to me, it kind of circles back around to emotional intelligence. I feel like that's one of the main keys to personal success and business success, because whether you have a customer or a client or an employee or a contractor that maybe it's a kind of a harsher, difficult situation, well, how you gauge that is going to say a lot about you and how you react to all of the different bumps in the road along the way that come with every single project. At the end of the day, how you handle that within the span of a year is going to equal to whether you're failing at your business or you're not. And so it's so important to realize that, one, a lot of this isn't personal. It really is business. And then that gets also kind of tricky, because you have to realize you have to be personable in business, and you can't just kind of come from this hierarchy kind of power strong sense. And so there's that balance, and it's about finding your balance. And then something that's worked for me is just to, again, at the end of the day, realize you're working with people. I entered this conversation with you. I didn't, one of the things was got to listen to more of your podcast, and that was where my energy and focus was. And I was like, man, she is great with leading a conversation. And that was inspiring to me. The last thing I looked at, I have no idea what your accolades are. I don't know if you were, you have, maybe you're a doctor and you have a doctorate degree. Like, whether you do or don't, my point is, at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to do our best. And
Yeah.
so trying to approach people with that compassion, especially in business, it's only going to help you,
Yeah.
because it's really easy to get stressed when you are running any kind of business at any level. And some people say, oh, well, isn't it easier if you have, a 7 and 8 figure business? And it's like, no. Whether
Right.
you're making 25,000 a year, 100,000, or a million a year, it just more money, more responsibility, really is kind of how I see it and how my business has grown. So
Yeah. Stress
I
is
hope
just,
that answers your question.
yeah, no, look, I loved it. Stress is just stress, really. My husband's often, been in construction, so that's funny. It's
Oh,
like,
interesting. Yeah.
he's been in construction all his life, but he's often led some really, really big, major construction jobs, and
That's
he
awesome.
sees it as the value. And
Yeah.
he'll often, the bigger the value it is, the more stress. And I've often said, look, it's still, at the end of the day, it's still project management, and it's still people, and it's still processes. Oh, but it's just zeros, honey. It's just zeros. Don't worry about that. Still always the,
Yeah.
but it is a very different environment. Some particular environments dictate, or they think that that's the way they should behave. That's what gets me a little upset, because as we are individuals that
Hmm.
have a huge ability and influence over our future and what we can achieve.
Hmm.
We don't have to do it just because it always has been the way it was or is.
Exactly.
And this is what I love about entrepreneurs and what you do as a high performance coach, to help other
Yes.
people to step into that and
Hmm.
have more empowerment with that, and to be able to frame things more in the way that they want to go into.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's something I learned myself with working with, the High Performance Academy. I worked with Brendan Burchard with all of that. And it's just one of those things that you could be one of the best leaders, but because we're human, at the end of the day, we could be so in our own head that what we need to do is really step back and to assess everything in our life, from money management to our perception of how we view our mindset around particular things, whether it's leadership, money, emotional intelligence. And so to have someone walk you through being better at that, creating a strategy, creating processes that work for you, I think it's great. We can always be enlightened, and we're forever expanding and learning.
Mm,
So I feel like that work is never really done. And it's important to have those people around you.
mm.
I don't think I'd really kind of, not that I'm anywhere near the top of my game, but I would not be at the level, at least, that I am now, if it weren't for mentors and people that
Yeah,
worked with me on my personal growth mindset.
yeah.
So
Which is very important. And we all need different types of trainers, teachers, coaches, and mentors in all different parts of our lives. There's two things I want to ask you around some of the things you've said already.
mhm.
And then I'm hoping that the dots are connecting with our listeners here at the moment, and how what we've talked about so far and how that aligns with reinvention. So I might circle back to the reinvention. I just
Yeah.
want to touch on a little bit more with your EQ, the emotional intelligence. If
Mhm.
people, I think people will be listening to this and starting to realize, wow, this has really got quite a lot of gravity and it's very important. How could they
Yeah.
grow their EQ?
So yes, growing your emotional intelligence. First of all, I highly recommend. There are so many different free quizzes and things to find out kind of what your learning style is. I think it's really important to, we're so used to kind of our own way that we don't stop to think, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that how I process this is from more of a left brain perspective. I'm more of a creative, or maybe I'm a visual I kind of learn better by listening, and I'm not more like so much of a visual person. So knowing how you take in information, I feel is really critical, because then you can start to learn in those ways. And I'm a huge advocate for, the online education and teaching yourself, and working with other groups of people, masterminds and things like that. But I would also say, secondly, to get yourself in different rooms, get yourself in more environments that really test the way that you think and that you process things. If you are a creative, then you're interested in certain topics, or the arts, or film, or whatever your thing is. I would say find groups of people that are honing in on learning that trade, and get yourself in those rooms and have deeper conversations. Be around people that really test the way you think, and then join those conversations, because it's one thing to sit back, but it's another to also vocalize your opinion, because then you start to learn what makes you comfortable or not comfortable. And all of those different things and scenarios help you with being a better emotionally intelligent person. Especially when you feel confident in yourself, what you believe in, what you're willing to stand up for, what you're willing to maybe set boundaries with and not talk about. And all that starts with getting around people.
Lovely, lovely. Definitely. Yeah. I love those sorts of things.
Me too.
If I could be paid just to learn, oh my gosh.
Yeah. If you find that, let me know. I want to sign up with you.
Okay.
And,
All right, we'll
okay.
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 There's so much out there, and it's so much fun, and it really does help in so many ways. Like you said, the emotional intelligence, honing your craft, honing your skill set, honing your mindset, and being able to leverage that with the connections that you do have. So then coming back to reinvention, and shifting mindset to accomplish what you're seeking. So say, for example, I think that with your book, is it your book that
Yes.
going into the thriving about 30? What is that?
Yes. So thriving into 30.
There we go. I have my glasses on. See, I'm
Oh,
more
you're
than
fine.
30.
Yeah, so my book is for a growth mindset girl, and it actually says it in the title. So it's Thriving into 30.
Yes.
And it's a 30 things guide for the growth mindset girl. I do talk about the 4 E's in that book. I actually even have a few pages where I space out. There's a chapter on boundaries where I allow, kind of invite you to write out what is one boundary that you can set for yourselves, because when people think of boundaries, they think, oh, it's just about telling people no, or making room for my yeses. And really there's this whole aspect of emotional boundaries for physical, for material possessions, for emotional, kind of mental, emotional boundaries. So like there are all these things, and in the book I really work to break down the different things. And there are 30 chapters, and each chapter talks about something I feel is so important. I'm 32 now, and I started writing the book when I was 29. I thought, oh yeah, I'll have this book out in a year, no problem. Life happens. I got a home. I traveled through, had a solo backpacking trip through Europe. All these great things happened, which worked out because I have some great stories to share in the book. But there were so many things that I was personally searching for. I wanted to reinvent myself. Yeah. I don't know if I haven't mentioned this yet, but I was going through a business divorce with the person I was in a relationship with. So at 29, I found myself, I had owned this successful business for 3 years, and it was just a not good environment. And I, found myself having to leave that. And the business was successful, the relationship wasn't. And so to give all that, to what feels like throw all that away and start from scratch and build back up. And then to kind of get where I am now, that takes some reinvention.
Absolutely.
And Yeah. And that wasn't the first time. It was just in a different, more challenging way. And I feel like people need to know that it's okay. Like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, we have to find that silver lining. We have to find the lesson in it. And I'm a big advocate for, it happens for you and not to you. And
Yeah.
some people say, oh, well, there are some people that go through really tragic events, being harassed, all these other very deep emotional traumatic things. And they're like, how can you say this happened for me? And it's not so much in that sense. It's more of, what's the alternative?
Mm,
Are you going to are you going to allow yourself to live in victimhood all of your life? And I know, because I was there for probably 2 months. And then I woke myself up and said, girl, if you do not get back up right now,
yeah.
if you don't come up with this alternative, what is life going to look like in the next year, 2 years for you?
Yeah.
And so then that wasn't an option anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's the powerful part of reinventing yourself, is when you have to burn the boat, when you have to say, I'm not turning back. There's no way I'm not going back there.
Yeah.
And you have to pick yourself up. And it's not some glamorous, beautiful thing. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
You, it's you have to ask for help sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel like back a few years ago, people used to think that asking for help was a weakness. And I love that people have such a positive perspective on how actually that's showing strength,
Yeah.
that asking for help doesn't mean that you're not a strong person.
Yeah.
It means that you're actually stronger than you think, because you're becoming vulnerable with the people that you love the most. And you're coming to them with open arms, asking, please don't judge me for this crazy thing that I'm enduring in life right now. And then you also get to know who's going to accept you.
Yeah.
And it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very sensitive thing. And it doesn't always have to be that big, but sometimes reinventing yourself takes, massive action. And then other times it takes, you know what, I'm just going to incorporate something new into my life. I've been stressed lately. So for 30 minutes after work every day, I'm going to decide to walk my dog in the evening, because that allows me to process my day. When before I get anxious or I turn to negative coping mechanisms and things like that. So we are forced to reinvent ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes more than what we want, or if when we tend to be a bit of a control freak and what we like. But yeah, I really like the idea, and I love what you've shared with us about your book. When I was looking at it, I thought, is it about for the age of 30? I do know a lot of people that when they get to that, it's another major part of life to have to change and alter with things that go on. And then certainly as you get older, like I've said, I'm becoming a bit of an empty nester, and that's weird as it's like you've had these things that are part of your life, these children that they're the things, as far as like it's another arm to you, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
now it's taken away, and it's like, whoa, and I'm supposed to be happy about this. Like,
Yeah, when they were your whole life since they
yes.
were born.
Yeah.
So that's almost like yeah, life is forcing you to reinvent
Yes.
something,
And
because
sometimes we just don't like it.
yeah.
Even if you are a challenge junkie like me, there are some challenges I
That's a
don't always
challenge of the heart, though.
like.
That's the deeper stuff, right?
Yeah.
Those are your babies. I
Yes.
mean,
Exactly. Exactly. Oh gosh, don't get me started, because otherwise I'll be here for a while. But but again, on the same token, it's there's a lot of identities involved around businesses. So we're seeing that entrepreneurship is quadrupling. That's
yes.
statistics, and that's where it's going. This has been the catalyst to get it started. It was supposed to start in 3 years, but it's
Mhm.
starting now. And if that's the case, there's a heck of a lot of change going on. There's a heck of a lot of reinvention. And even with the products and services that you think you'd offer, whether you have to have a change to that or not is another thing. So reinvention is constantly there, especially if to stand out and to have to because it's all about being a point of differentiation. So I
Yes.
really like that you have this book where it's helping people in a tangible way. Like you said, I suppose I call it
Yeah.
like nuts and bolts. It's not the
Yeah.
hot air, it's not the fluff. I do
Yeah.
know that the younger generation do tend to like the whole, whoa, 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 let's get going. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, but show me the real legit stuff. Otherwise, it's just hot air. So I like the idea that
Yeah.
you've got that in there for people.
Thank you. Yeah.
Would there be
I
any?
really want them to ask those deeper questions, because when I was getting out of my 20s, and again, I mean, my first business I opened it, I was 18 turning 19, and I literally had my first LLC. I was a, hair and makeup artist, working model and photographer in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's just interesting to share what kind of, to be an open book really of kind of what I've learned owning a business at such a young age, and then having businesses fail, and then
Mm,
having businesses succeed, but then having to close them. And I feel like I've started from scratch so many times
mm.
that pandemic, you cannot get to me. I'm like, I have gone
Been
through the
there,
ringer.
done that. Yeah.
So been there, done that.
Yeah.
And on this topic of reinvention, especially for people opening up businesses right now, it's so important to know, look, this whole entrepreneurship being awesome is going to have this big ol' sulk soon. It's not going to be cool anymore. And will your business survive
Yep.
when all of a sudden the cameras are towards something new and different? Maybe the Teslas and IT world and apps only, and then it's like, why did you start your business, and what can you do to keep it surviving? Because as much as the industry is turning to, okay, so millions of people have lost their jobs, and now all these people are starting their own businesses. I would just make sure you're doing something you love, and if
Mm,
you're going to invest that much time and money into it,
mm,
make sure you
mm.
have a business plan.
Yeah.
Make
Yep.
sure that you are spending your money on the right things. Make sure you're setting yourself up for success. And when you do see that success in that first year, turn around and put that money right back in your business and into advertising, because it's so easy to have your business fail, especially in that first 3 years,
Yep.
because most businesses do.
Yeah.
And so even just reinventing yourself in that way of kind of honing, back to honing down on um, kind of getting serious with your craft,
Mm,
because it's all fun and games to announce to the world that, you're now a business owner. But what does that really mean for you? And especially if you have a family,
yeah.
and what does that look like in the long run? I think that those are such important questions. And then circling back around to my book, that's why I wrote it. I feel like I was looking for something that kind of gave me more thought-provoking questions.
Hmm.
And every book I read was like, eat the cake and dump your boyfriend and travel the world. And I was like, yeah, all that's really cool. But, I want to do good in my life. Like I was searching for something to kind of go deeper with me.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wrote in here.
That's so lovely. And speaking of, you have actually done a lot of travels, a lot of
Yeah.
travels. I often say to people, I've actually lived in Australia. There's not as many states as what there is in the US, but I've lived
Yeah.
in 4 states of Australia, and people go, "Oh
That's awesome.
my gosh!" And my kids, I think we've moved house 15 times, and my kids are going, "Oh my gosh!" When we tell my friends, they've gone, "Oh my gosh, that's so weird." Now, when I read that you have lived in so many places, I'm like, damn, okay, you're the winner there.
Oh,
You want to
yeah.
just explain a little bit about that to the listeners?
Yeah. I mean, I am, talk about wanderlust. My soul was just called to travel. Literally I graduated a year early from high school, like not in my original class. There were two other good friends of mine that graduated early, and I was 16 turning 17 when I graduated.
Wow.
And I had my first year of college under my belt, all in those 3 years.
Wow.
And because I grew up in a town that during my graduation week they had the opening of the Super Walmart, which is a big super like grocery store. It was such a small town that like the band and the cheerleaders were out, and it was this big thing to have a grocery store in our hometown. And I think that's great. Great people in my town. By the way, people know of my hometown, Uvalde, as that's where Matthew McConaughey is from. So he talks a lot about that in his book. But anyway, long story short, I just knew I wanted to travel. And so I've lived literally in 32 states in America. I lived out of a suitcase for years until I got tired of it and thought, I think I might want to buy a drawer set and be somewhere long enough to call home. But I did. And then, just traveling out of the country, I feel like it's such a big part of understanding more about ourselves. It's given me a deeper meaning of compassion towards other people, and different cultures have always interested me. And just knowing that I'm not just here. I'm not just in my lane and then this is the world because of the bubble I grew up in. I wanted to explore what the rest of the world was experiencing. I have a lot more places to go. I have not been to Australia. That is on my list, girlfriend. So,
well, as soon as the border's down, come on over. I'll show you all the best places to go and visit. Because I've traveled most of Australia. I've driven most of Australia, not all the touristy. Well, I've done touristy, but I've done the unusual. So, and then I'll tell you all the best places to eat and drink and all that.
Fantastic. Especially food. I'm such a foodie when I travel. When I was I spent 2 winters in Jerusalem. And I got to travel all the way from the Dead Sea to the north in the Golan Heights in the kibbutz. So, and everywhere in between, Tel Aviv, Saba, all the places. I've been to the Whispering Wall multiple times, and just going to the markets and the food. And I've done all of Europe. I got lost in the jungles of Costa Rica this last fall. And I'm really missing travel right now. And I talk a lot about that in the book too, because there's just something about it. I feel like traveling helps you learn more about yourself, and you don't have to go across the country. No. But like what did that teach you? You got to drive. Like, how beautiful is it to just get out on the road? Like, how beautiful did you feel?
BC, before children, when I didn't know I was rich.
Tell me about it.
And you just go 10 left. And no GPSs, no mobile phones back then. And we did have maps, but didn't worry about it. And let's just get lost. Let's go find stuff. And that's what I really love too, like you, is to feel what makes that place tick, the culture, the people. I used to love going into new places and pick up the yellow pages back then. So I'm showing my age. Pick up the yellow pages and look through the adverts, because believe it or not, I think I'm the only
Tell me.
to do that. But it's because I could see the mindset of that township.
Oh, look at you beyond your time. That's beautiful.
I could see what their mindset is at. What did they place importance on, and all of those sorts of things. And it was one of those fascinating little weird things that I did. And so now doing this and in a different type of way, in virtual, and meeting people, interviewing people, finding out, it's just beautiful, lovely. But I tell you what, my feet are getting itchy and I want to travel. I just want to get a caravan we're not the grey nomads, or the grey, what do they call it? The grey procession. So I'm pre-grey.
Yes.
I just want to travel, just so that I can feel the culture and what it's like. I'd like to live in different places. And to me, because I'm business orientated, because business is a vehicle that creates a whole lot more leverage. It impacts a lot of lives. And I'm very much about the pay it forward ethos.
Yeah.
And to sort of see where people are at and what they're doing with business, and to be able to be a part of contributing and giving back and giving ideas of how to perhaps even potentially improve that township. And, these are the different ideas that I've had over the time. I'm going, oh my gosh, how much time do I have?
Well, you just mentioned, you're like, I don't know what to do now that the nest is... the birds have flown from their nests. So
I've got a lot
Maybe
of my
that's the big thing.
don't worry, I do know what I've got a lot to do.
You're like, when do I start?
How
No.
do I do it all in such a
No, that's good. I'm
But
excited for you.
again, these is all the reinventions. This is all of the pivoting. This is what I think has been teaching a lot of people. If they've not gotten out to be able to do this in a very physical sense, like you and I both have done, then they're now starting to learn to do it in their, not only their businesses, but also as an individual, as a human being, with the people that are staying home, that they're starting to feel like, oh, I actually might want to do a sideline hustle. So how do you pivot?
Yeah.
How do you, and I've always said to people, if you can empower yourself, you can live through anything, as far as it being, I've had robberies, and when I've had my businesses in the past, you can also go through recessions and depressions and stuff like that and
Yep.
still come out, because at the end of the day, it's about mindset, and your is
Yes.
beautiful. I think people need to get your book and to read
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and I talk about side hustles as well in my book, because it's something I'm passionate about. And I think people need to do that. Find something you enjoy, find a way to make money at it, and show up.
Mm.
And there's never been a better time. And you were talking about maps. I know I was before, GPS and Waze existed. Like, I remember reading from an actual printed map, and it's interesting to see how far we've come in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And my point being that there's never been a better time, even though there seems to be so much chaos in the world. And if your mindset wants to go to that place to make excuses for yourself, and I know it sounds harsh, but some tough love here, then you're never going to find a different way.
Mm.
But if you push yourself, you become resourceful.
Yep.
Some of the biggest companies in the world started during a recession.
Yep, that's right.
Some of the biggest, I was looking at a live that Robert Kiyosaki did from Rich Dad Poor Dad, probably it was like 7-10 days ago. And he said, I'm excited. He was like, in 2008, that I made millions in 2008. And just hearing his thought process of what he invested in, and just being smart with the way you spend and what you invest your time, energy, money into right now, it's so important. So just be resourceful, know that it's possible. There are millions of people doing it. And especially in the education business, there are so many. One thing that I'm doing and I'm launching in February is my online courses. I'm moving from one-on-one coaching to impacting more lives, and getting 2 different courses out, one on business and one on lifestyle.
Yep.
And that business is projected in the next 5 years to go, and I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but something like in the 500 million to 500 billion. Those are really large numbers. And so I would say jump on that train.
Yeah.
What do you currently at this moment, you have done something, you are knowledgeable in something, maybe even if you're waitressing right now, but in high school and in college, you were playing the cello or the violin or an instrument. There are people out there that can that can pay you for virtual classes right now.
Right.
That's a side hustle. That is a business.
Yep.
And have something that people want right now. So find what it is and get to making money at it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Even if you continue to do something tangible on the side, or even if it is a tangible outcome, like you saying with waitresses, they could still teach other people how to do it in a better way that can earn better
100%.
money and those sorts of things, and different things, even while they're still doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
exactly. You don't have to quit what you're doing right now to go do something else. People used to say, oh yeah, just quit your 9 to 5 and go start your business. And then people started realizing that's maybe not the best way to do that all the time in every situation. Everyone's situation is different. Maybe you have a spouse that can support you while you take 6 months to get your business, make it, up and going to make money. Point blank, you can start something now. It's going to take extra time. And it goes back to where are you investing that?
Yep.
Would you rather hang out, watch Netflix with friends? And there's nothing wrong with that. I have Netflix binged recently, but not at the expense of making that my priority. And so I would just ask yourself right now, if you feel like you're in a time and you just know that now's the time to reinvent yourself, get your priorities in order, write it, make a list of what you know you are great at. How can you teach that to other people? What does a side hustle mean to you, and how can you get into that so that all of a sudden you're making an extra $250 to $1,000 a month, which could really change your life in extraordinary ways. And all that's possible for people, even in a global pandemic right now, because people are doing it.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. You have brought us so many pearls of wisdom, so
Awesome.
many tips. It's
Yay.
really, really lovely. And I know that people will be listening to it and thinking, wow, there's so many little things there that are dropping pennies for them. I would really encourage the listeners to listen again, because there's actually lots of little nuggets of gold in there that you've given us. And I really, really appreciate that. And I was going to be asking you, well, what's on the horizon for the remainder of 2020 and then into 2021, which you have given us as far as your book launch and with courses coming up. So I will be collecting your details there, Amber, and popping it on the website. People will know how to go when they go to soniaclark.com. And go and click on the podcast tab and find you there. So, yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to say as far as with what's on the horizon, or did we cover that off enough for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered it. You can really, anything about me, you can find just under my name, amberybarra.com. And I do want to just leave you guys with one more thing, which is please believe in yourself enough to know that you're capable of extraordinary things. I feel like sometimes what's common knowledge isn't always common practice. And as much as we hear that saying that we're capable and we get inspired, sometimes it doesn't really click. And I know I definitely don't want to undermine the fact that so many people are struggling right now. I think it's a really big issue that we should take very seriously. And so if you find yourself kind of struggling in that, just know that we're all in the same boat. We're in different versions of that boat. And we all experience those scary times. And if anything, I just want to encourage you to find all the beautiful and wonderful things that you hold, the qualities that you possess, and ask yourself what it's going to take to find that happiness for you. And maybe it's not a business at all. But if it is, you can do it. So get out there and take the first step.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And your offer is, maybe you just want to explain it quickly to the listeners.
Yeah, just go to Amber Ybarra, that's Ybarra is the last name.com. And I have tons of free resources. I have a 9-page guide on pretty much the first steps into reinventing yourself. I have a 9-page workbook for you for free, as well as getting clarity on mindset and a few chapters that I'm sharing from my book. So all that can be found on my website.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so, so much for sharing your knowledge and your tips with us, giving us your time. And yeah, I look forward to seeing now what's going to be happening in your near future in 2021 in those courses.
You've been a delight to chat with. I appreciate your time so much. Thanks for letting me speak to your audience. And I hope that, they enjoy the conversation.
I'm sure they have. Thank you so much. Thank you. See you later.
All right, goodbye.